Well, how would the leader of a political party feel if he were told that his fellow politicians are all clowns and his supporters are racists? Well, that's the view of yet another senior Conservative about UKIP. UKIP leader Nigel Farage is in the studio and will have his say in just a moment. It's worth reminding you it was over 6 years ago that the then leader of the opposition, now, of course, Prime Minister David Cameron, had a conversation with me about UKIP.
UKIP, it's just a sort of, bunch of... they're just trying to make a bit of mischief. As far as
I can see,
UKIP is a bunch of what?
Well, fruitcakes and loonies and closet racists, mostly.
I wonder if he's come to regret those words. Well, Ken Clarke, he's at it again this weekend.
The trouble with UKIP, really, is it's just a protest party. It's against the political parties, the political classes. It's against foreigners. It's against immigrants. But it doesn't have any very positive policies. They don't know what they're for.
UKIP's colourful and, can I say, controversial leader Nigel Farage is in the studio with me. How do you respond, Mr Farage?
Good morning.
Morning.
When Cameron said it, I think it was just a relatively young, inexperienced leader of the Tory party who has grown up in a very narrow world. And anybody with a view or an argument outside of what Mr Cameron considers to be normal is just dismissed, batted away as being irrelevant, not mainstream, not respectable. Yesterday was different. The words were similar, but it was different. And the reason is...
This is from Ken Clarke,
yeah,
of course.
Sorry, from Ken
No, that's
Clarke.
all right. That's my job. Don't worry, Nigel.
They've lost the argument. And I was very struck last week. I was on a big TV panel, and the question of opening the door next year to Romania and Bulgaria came up, and I said, look, no one said this before, but I'm going to say it. In London alone, there have been 28,000 arrests of Romanians in the last 5 years, out of a total population in Britain of 80,000. This is very, very worrying. I'd been in Bulgaria the week before. I'd met a senior cleric who said the first wave that come to Britain from these countries will be criminals because it's easy pickings. And I said, surely, this is so important to the well-being of our own people and our communities that we've got to put a stop to this. And they just all went like goldfish. They didn't know what to do or what to say. So what Clarke did yesterday, he decided there was no point debating with UKIP because we'll lose. So rather than going for the ball, he's gone for the man, and he's decided to abuse us. I have to say, I do not think it will work. I think virtually everybody out there would say, whether they agree with UKIP or not, discussing immigration is not about racism, it's about what's good for us.
And yet you look at the previous of some of your candidates. I think some 1,700 UKIP candidates are standing and 2,300 odd seats are being contested. Nigel Farage, you have got people who've been members of BNP, haven't you?
Interesting, isn't it? We're the only political party in this country who forbid former BNP members from even joining our party, let alone from being candidates. You can be BNP and join the Lib Dems, join the Tories, join Labour. Indeed, the Labour Party have got former BNP people sitting as councillors for them. So, we don't need lectures from the political class about the BNP. I have dealt with this, and the fact that in this campaign 2 people deliberately lied on their forms, I'm not happy about it, but I've done more than anybody to stop this sort of thing.
How do you counter the allegation you're a one-issue party?
I think that's ridiculous. everyone knows that, of course, the European thing is absolutely vital because we believe that Britain should be a self-governing nation. But, we've been talking about the madness of wind energy in this country. Why should your listeners pay a 12% surcharge on their electricity bills to build wind turbines which despoil the country and make the rich richer? We're the one party saying that the gap now between privately educated kids and ordinary kids has got so wide and so vast that we've got to bring back grammar schools to give people who are bright from poor backgrounds a chance. There are lots of things that UKIP's campaigning on.
The Times newspaper, don't know if you've had an opportunity to see its leader today, Mr Farage. They talk about taking UKIP seriously, and I'll quote directly, "Taken as a whole, UKIP's demands are incredible. The party has simultaneously promised tax cuts worth £90 billion a year and spending increases mostly on defence and a doubling in prison places that will cost £30 billion. It would no doubt be marvellous to phase out national insurance contributions for employers, but short of finding a spare £50 billion somewhere, it is a fantasy." They're going to describe it as a pantomime. So apart from your position or the nation's position, you don't have other policies that work, really,
Well, that's just not true. And getting rid of employers...
The Times is fairly even-handed, is it?
Getting rid of employers' national insurance is not a policy, it's a long-term aspiration for where we'd love Britain to be in 5 or 10 years' time. We will fight...
Where does the money come from for these policies?
We will fight the next general election on a ticket that shows where the cuts have to come. Because let's be honest, all these debates that go on about cuts in government spending, there are no cuts. We have a £130 billion black hole this year. By the end of this coalition government, our national debt will have increased by 40%. And UKIP will go into that election with a very, very tough package that not everybody will like, but we're going to have to get rid of many of the quangos, and a lot of public sector jobs, I'm afraid, are threatened.
But it's not costed, according to the Times, which is a fairly even...
Well, interestingly, George Osborne's costings have all been wrong. Labour have produced no costings...
But that doesn't make yours right.
Labour have produced no costings whatsoever, and we will, in the autumn of next year, come up with a full costed programme with which to go into the general election.
OK. One other newspaper, The Sun, it's... eminent political commentator, former political editor, says there's a revolution in the air in Britain. Is there?
I've just spent a fortnight going around the country to Labour areas, Tory areas, Lib Dem areas, and I would say that ordinary, decent British people are sick to death of career politicians in three parties who look the same, sound the same, and don't stand up and speak on issues that affect people in their everyday lives. And I think UKIP is plugging that gap, and the idea that all of our voters are protesters, no. What they say to me is, thank God there's someone out there saying what we think.